All right. Genesis chapter 4. We're going to start with Fred and Julia today.
How many?
Let's go with 3 again. 3 verses each.
Cain and Abel. Now Adam had sexual relations with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, "With the Lord's help, I have produced a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord.
Abel also brought a gift, the best portion of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected?"
All right, Sherry.
You will be accepted if you do what is right, but if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master. One day, Cain suggested to his brother, "Let's go out into the fields." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him.
All right.
Afterward, the Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother? Where is Abel?" "I don't know," Cain responded. "Am I my brother's guardian?"
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Don and Elaine.
But the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed and banished from the ground, which has swallowed your brother's blood. No longer will your ground yield good crops for you, no matter how hard you work. From now on, you will be a homeless wanderer on the earth."
Cain replied to the Lord, "My punishment is too great for me to bear. You have banished me from the land and from your presence. You have made me a homeless wanderer, and anyone who finds me will kill me." The Lord replied, "No, for I will give a sevenfold punishment to anyone who kills you." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn anyone who might try to kill him.
All right, Todd and Sherry.
Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Mahujael, and Mahujael begot Methushael, and Methushael begot Lamech. One more? No, that's it.
Where are you at?
19.
And Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of
Wait.
those.
19.
Then Lamech took for himself 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. And Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the harp and flute.
All right. Mom, why don't you go ahead and finish it?
And as for Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Then Lamech said to his wives, "Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. Wives of Lamech, listen to my speech. For I have killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and named him Seth. For God has appointed another seed for me instead of Abel, whom Cain killed. And as for Seth, to him also a son was born, and he named him Enos. Then men began to call on the name of the Lord.
All right. Anything stand out in this chapter?
In the beginning, in verse 2, Abel was a shepherd and Cain cultivated the ground. Now, was Cain not to cultivate the ground? Was he supposed to be a shepherd?
No, it was just that was their interests. They had different interests. Obviously, Cain wanted to be a farmer, and Abel wanted to be, it's not really sheep herder, but
Shepherd.
yeah,
Well-
just somebody who took care of animals.
Well, when they brought the first fruit of their crop, God accepted Cain's and didn't accept Abel's, but
Vice versa.
was it because
Wrong.
Abel didn't bring a lamb? You know, he had the
Abel
best.
brought the lamb, and it was Cain that didn't, and brought the vegetables or something.
Yeah, Abel became a shepherd and Cain cultivated the ground. But when they offered their gift to God, God accepted Abel's, but not Cain's. And,
I'm wondering why.
you know, did Cain, it seemed to me like he did what was best of his best crop. You know,
Right. Now, I know the NLT didn't quite translate that as well. It really should be offering. And King James actually, I'm sorry, yeah, the King James and New King James actually translated as offering. The Hebrew actually brings out that it was a sin offering. See, there's nothing wrong. There are some, like a thank offering can actually be grain, as Leviticus says. And so there are times when it's okay to give God offering that is from the fields, but this is a sin offering. And even though we've never heard it before, it seems to me that God actually told Adam and Eve that if you're going to give a sin offering, it has to be a lamb. And this is where Cain decided that I'm not going to have a lamb. Now, he could have bought a lamb from Abel. He could have gone somewhere and got himself a lamb, but this was a direct disobedience from God's command.
Well, and it's not like the lamb cost him anything either. So he was just down and out doing it the way he wanted to do it.
Right.
Because I'm assuming the lambs didn't belong to anybody. Nobody really owned livestock at the time. So if it was just the four of them, maybe a sister or two, I don't know. But if that's all it was, it's not like he had to go buy a lamb or, it was a lot of effort. But I think it was just that he wanted to do it his own way.
Right. That's actually a good point. That, yeah, I don't know if Abel actually said all the lambs on the earth are mine, but you're right. It could be that, he just had a specific number, and if it's only them, then yeah, Cain could have just gone anywhere and got himself a lamb.
Mhm.
I think that's a good point. Did that answer your question, Don?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
All right. Anything else?
This was the first time I think that it was noted that one of the brothers had two wives.
Yeah,
Yes.
I haven't heard that before.
Yes. And at best, these guys were cousins. More than likely, obviously, they were brother and sister.
Sure.
And so I think even then, because of sin, God was allowing, I would have not known what God would have done when to multiply the earth. Maybe it would have been just brothers and sisters and cousins, because if for the most part, I think all the way from Cain, from Abel, Cain, Seth, and probably even onward, there was obviously have to be brother sister marital relationships.
Yeah.
And you know, that would have had to have meant that a daughter would have had to have rejected God at some point. Because
Yes.
where else would a woman have come from for him to marry? You know, it had to have been one of the daughters that kind of rejected God also.
Right.
It's kind of sad.
Or kind of did what Adam did, which is, I don't want to have Cain go by himself, so
Yeah, that's true too.
How many women are there that don't think they can change a guy?
I mean, what?
How many women out there think they can't change a guy?
So she might have been there to reform him, huh?
Yeah,
Right.
that was it. She should make him be a good person.
Now, what do you think about the punishment?
I think that's pretty, well, to me, I thought it was pretty strict.
Okay.
Pretty tough.
Do you think it's too strict? Is that what you're saying? Too strict?
No, I'm just thinking it was a strict thing. He must have been aware that God wanted him to obey, so he deliberately disobeyed. So that's, when you think of a child doing that, that's when you want to give him a little paddling in the right place.
Yeah, I don't think that was the punishment for Cain disobeying, was that God just didn't accept the offering. And by the way, that's the thing about offering to God. If we don't give God the offering he's asked us to, he's not going to accept it. And, I know this is even really hard for, let's just say with Sabbath versus Sunday. During the time of Jesus, there was no such thing as Sabbath versus Sunday. But when the Pharisees decided to make their own laws that were contrary to God's laws, Jesus was the one who said, "In vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrine the commandments of men." So basically what Jesus was saying, I don't care how much you're sacrificing, if you're not doing what I'm asking you to do, or if you're sacrificing based on your own laws, you're doing everything in vain. And so when Cain started offering something that God specifically said not to, because obviously the burnt offering, has to do with the fulfillment of God destroying sin once and for all. And the only way sin can be destroyed is through blood. And that is why they had to pick not just any lamb, but a perfect lamb. And for somebody to bring fruits and vegetables, they're basically saying, yeah, I don't need your blood to forgive my sin. Cain's act deliberately said, I don't need God for my sin to be forgiven. I can give whatever I want. And God said, no, that's not possible. The punishment came after he killed his brother. The punishment of banishment is for killing his brother. Now let's go to our own laws right now. And I would say that when it comes to murder, if we murder somebody, and this is first degree murder, the difference which is, second degree is by accident, right? I don't know what third degree is, but second degree is you just did something by accident. First degree is you planned it out. And for Cain, he plans this whole thing, brings Abel to a field. I'm guessing so that mom and dad won't be anywhere to see this, or none of the sisters would be there to see this. And then he kills him and then buries him, right? To hide the evidence. So first degree murder and hiding the evidence. What would be our punishment for someone like that?
But
Or somebody who does.
Electric chair.
Sorry.
it depends on the lawyer. It might be probation.
Or
Right.
in fact, the electric chair, if you're in that state, that will do is electric chair. Or life imprisonment.
Yeah, unless what Don is saying, unless the lawyer can really just, I don't know, go through a
Yeah.
bunch of loopholes.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
most part, it would be life imprisonment. Life for a life, I guess, is what we're saying.
Well, I have a question, because in the context, in the actual words, it doesn't sound like God necessarily banished him. It sounds like he made that choice, and that God was just predicting, hey, you are going to live on your own because that's your choice. And it's almost like there was no what is it? He wasn't sorry for what he had done.
Mhm.
And when the Lord at first said, well, because of what you did, because of the blood you shed, and obviously Abel's blood is on the ground, therefore the ground is going to be cursed to you. It's not going to produce like it used to for you. And then it said that from now on, you will be a vagabond. That's what ours says. You will be a wanderer.
Mhm.
Was that more of a prediction than a pronouncement? Was that Cain's choice to leave because he would not, well, let's just say he would not enjoy it there anymore?
Where's the choice? What text did you get that he had a choice?
Well, I'm not saying that he did. I'm just saying that is this a prophecy that God is saying, well, from here on, this is what you're going to be like because of his choice? Or is it because God said, okay, you don't have a choice. From now on, you're going to be a vagabond. You're going to be a wanderer. So
I see.
did God actually punish him? The only punishment I really see here is that the ground is going to be cursed. But
Right.
because he had no remorse, did he choose to leave? And God was just saying, well, because of your leave, from now on, you will be a wanderer. So I'm just asking, was that God's punishment, or was that Cain putting that on himself? And God was just telling him, okay, because of your choices, this is what you're going to do from now on. I'm just asking.
Right.
It seems as I'm reading it in verse 10, 11, but the Lord said, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out for me from the ground. And 11, now you are cursed and banished from the ground, which has swallowed your brother's blood. And then he goes on to say, no longer will your ground yield good crops for you, no matter how hard you work. So isn't that God's telling him that now he'll be homeless and wander the earth?
Yeah, for me, it seems that God basically said, whatever you touch is not going to be fruitful anymore.
That's-
And because of that, he had to leave whatever fruitful place that's there. Now, the text doesn't say it. So that has to be an assumption that, because when he went to Nod, now I don't know who gave the word Nod, but the Hebrew word for Nod is desert place. So again, this is where, did Cain go there and God name it Nod? Because you're going to go to a desert place where it's not going to be fertile, or somebody named that Nod because it was a desert place, and so that's where he went. Obviously, again, the text can go one way or the other here, but I do think, as far as your question, Todd, I do think that when Cain said, "You have banished me," I think he was talking about this was all God's action. It's not like Cain said, all right, well, since if you're going to be that way, I'm going to go somewhere where you're not going to be a part of my life. I think God says, no, you got to go to this place. Just like he banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, God banished him from a fruitful plain and basically took away what he loved doing, which, for him, he was a gardener. I know I was thinking about this as I was planting, doing some planting today, and I hate gardening. I just can't stand it. I'm forcing myself to, just because I have a big garden, but for Cain, it seems to me that he loves it. This is what he wants to do for the rest of his life, and God's punishment for him is, I'm sorry, you're not going to get to do what you love anymore. And so I think even at this point, if he can't have fresh vegetables or fruits anymore because he's going to be in a land that's not bearing fruit, then the only thing he could eat would be meat. But again, that's a whole lot of assumptions.
In 14, it says that Cain is saying that he's banished from God's presence, but that's really not true either. He chose to, God would have forgiven him, right?
Yeah, I think what he meant there, because the presence of Adam and Eve were pretty close still to the garden. They could still see the angel of God. And there is this theory that God's presence was still in the garden, that people can still talk to God as he was in the garden. And when Cain was banished to Nod, he wasn't seeing that anymore. So obviously, I think what you're saying is, does that mean God is no longer with him? I think you're right. God is still with him, but as far as the literal presence of God, as far as seeing the angel in the Garden of Eden, as far as seeing a presence of God in the garden, that at this point Adam and Eve seems to still be enjoying, that's not there anymore for him.
Okay.
Well, and I think God knew that there was no remorse in Cain either. So, it's just like the wicked at the end. God knows that they're not going to change their minds. And
Right.
so, yeah.
Yeah, because on 16, it says, so Cain left the Lord's presence.
Yeah.
It seems to me that one of the things that was available was God's presence was still there. And from that time on Cain's life, he left that place never to see God again.
Mhm.
Now, the other issue is, it seems to me, I can't even imagine how angry Adam and Eve were.
Mhm.
Just think about it. If you ever had a kid kill one of your kids, I don't even know what kind of emotions, especially this is the first murder that ever took place. And so when Cain actually said, everybody will want to kill me, anyone who finds me will kill me, I have no idea how true or false that statement is. Because obviously Abel had friends, right? Let's just say Abel had a favorite dog, favorite tiger, favorite lion, I don't know. And all of a sudden, all these animals knew that Cain killed their favorite master. I think there's this mentality, whether it's true or not, that the people's mindset of revenge was also very present at that time.
Sure,
Well, if
sure
you
it
think
was.
about it, Adam and Eve lost two sons that day.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and Cain, Abel's wife was very aware that he was gone.
right. And so if there were siblings to begin with, obviously there were sisters on this. Maybe like what we mentioned at the beginning, one of the sisters just took Cain's side and the rest of them took Abel's side. And so this is the first almost irreconcilable conflict. And the pain of this is, I think only very few people in the world would even understand it. But because I'm sure siblings kill siblings, but it seems like a rare thing.
Brendel, you mentioned that there's a thought that people talk to, like they could still talk to God from the garden.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always under the impression that Adam and Eve's sin separated them from God. So why would he have, why would that still be there, that they could have still talked to him if Jesus had to come so that they could heal that separation and we could talk to him the way we do?
Well, I know they were banished from the garden, and even after they sinned, God was talking to them. Now, this is all conjecture, and we're just going with the presence of the Lord statement. And so, quite honestly, there is no proof one way or the other that they could. But if Adam and Eve could see the angel there, if they could still see the garden, it also, I'm actually going with this novel. And again, it's a novel. I forgot what it is now. It was high school that I read it. But in it, the author was saying that, even though there was a separation between God and Noah, and obviously they couldn't get into the garden, but the conversation with God was still available. And none of that is biblical. None of that can be proven. But for me, the word presence of the Lord, going away from the presence of the Lord, there is a possibility that God's presence was still in the garden.
One of the things I studied years ago, I studied this story, and verse 10, I always thought is another proof text of the state of the dead, because it says, and he said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." He didn't say, well, suddenly your brother's up here in heaven. And I'm thinking, how did he get here?
Right.
But he's literally, your brother's blood from the ground spoke to me, or told me what happened. And I'm like, well, here's another proof that when you die, you don't go to heaven right away.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
Thought,
I'm sorry, were you saying something, Don?
I said, good thought.
Oh,
Very
okay.
good thought, yeah.
I thought you said Todd. Uh,
I could have. My memory is not very good.
so after that, there's this other story with Lamech. And basically Lamech kills somebody. We don't know who. But since most of these people are cousins, are relatives of some sort, I think obviously it was someone who they're related to. We have no idea what it was or why he killed a man. It seems though that there was a fight because this young man wounded him, right? I'm in verse 23 and 24. And again, it ends there. It ends that if someone kills Cain, someone who kills Cain is punished 7 times. Then the one who kills me will be punished 77 times. Now, it seems to me that the story of Cain got repeated again. That we can assume, and again, it's all assumption because we have no clue what the surrounding thing is here. But what we can get from this is that we have a God who punishes people who murder people and yet protects them at the same time. Because it doesn't seem to me that God wants this thing of people just killing other people for killing other people. I know even in Leviticus, where an eye is for an eye, and even Deuteronomy says that eye for an eye. That whole thing wasn't individual; it was always corporate. That if there is someone who wants to take vengeance, the elders of the town has to be involved. And there were times when God even created a city of refuge for people to go to who murder people by accident or heat of the moment. But they can go there until there is a tribunal that would meet so that, there'll be an accuser and a defender. And then if the person then is found guilty, then they can be punished for their death. For me, this really is telling of how God works. In most cultures in the Middle East, it is almost you don't have to go through any kind of court. If somebody kills your family member or your friend, you have the right to kill them. Now, in some cultures, there even such a thing as honor killing, which is way beyond this. But honor killing is usually for women, actually, only. And if you somehow disgraced your family by marrying somebody that your family did not arrange your marriage to, then they have the right to kill you. Anyone from the father to the brothers have the right to kill you. And there's many instances where they would kill the daughter in front of the husband or just in front of people. And somehow it's okay because it's an honor killing. The Bible doesn't teach that. And even on chapter 4, as gruesome and as tough to read something like sibling murder, we have a God who says my sense of justice is, there will be punishment, but I need to mark, because this is the other thing. He marked Cain so that if somebody kills him, that they would be punished even more. Now, what do you guys think about that? What is this? Why can't people kill him? What would be so wrong about killing a murderer?
Maybe God didn't want people to do the revenge thing, hold it in their heart, to be more forgiving.
God still loves us no matter what. I mean, maybe he was waiting for Cain to come around and actually admit that he did something wrong and ask for forgiveness.
Would that,
Right.
would that kind of put a kibosh on electric chairs killings that that the state does or country does?
Well, again, there's a difference between punishment, because even God approves capital punishment. When we get to Leviticus, we're not going to read Leviticus, but Leviticus and Deuteronomy, God has made laws that once a person is found guilty of murder, then it's up to the ruling bodies of that town to be
Okay.
able to say, and God approves that. But what he
Okay.
doesn't seem to approve is just people saying, look, you killed my friend, you killed my family, I will now go and kill you. Now, I think, Julia, what you're saying is, this is for me, another part of sin, because God seems to give the murderer an opportunity to repent. I believe that a trial gives Cain the opportunity to say, I'm sorry. And obviously, as a thief on the cross would testify, even right to the very last minute, somebody can say, I'm sorry. God wants to give that option to people. I think that's what the trial is all about. The other thing too is, I know even in firing squads, the right way to do a firing squad is you have more than one person firing at another person, so that the firing squad doesn't know what bullet hit the person, because it actually also changes you as a human being when you murder somebody. And so
Randall,
God basically says, I'll take care of that too. Again, all of these are conjectures, but it seems to me, if you look behind the scenes about why God would try to do this, for me, those are some of the solutions I would come up with. Did you want to say something, Fred?
yeah, the part about the execution, I'm pretty sure from what I understand from reading different excerpts, is there would be maybe say 7 or maybe, I'll just say seven people, 7 men with rifles, but there's only one live round
Oh, really?
in the 7. Yeah, so whoever shoots
Okay.
him, nobody knows who did it.
Right.
I think one of the other things in this was, I've studied with some people who say that the 10 commandments or the commandments of God, or the rules, if you want to say, were not given until Sinai. And I'm thinking, well, then how do you explain Cain being punished? If Cain didn't know that murder was wrong, then he would have said, well, God, you never told me that killing my brother was wrong. So there had to have been some sense of law, some sense of right and wrong, even back then. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been fair to Cain to punish him.
Right.
It could have been common sense.
Well, I think the law was even in their hearts at that time. Before the law was given in stone, I think it was in their hearts. They knew the difference.
Right. And on your comment, Fred, that's the thing about common sense is a sense that's common to everyone. And
Right.
I think when you take God's law out of it, then it's no longer common or sensical. And I think in that sense, God has told people, or it just, because when God created our brain, he created us with a software. And the software is the only way we'll be happy is we're loving God and serving God. And I think part of the software is what's right and what's wrong. And it's only humanity that decided to rewire the software.
Mhm.
And God's seems to me that God's work from the beginning of sin is to rewire the, if I'm going to talk in computer sense, it is God to rewire the virus that we as human beings decided to say, this is right and this is wrong. And God is like, no, what I say is right. And I'm the one who says what's right and what's wrong. Okie doke. Thank you so much for your feedback. I knew this was a really explosive chapter, and I wanted to talk a little bit about chapter 3, but there's no time, so maybe Monday. We'll see. I'm gonna
Thank you for joining us at our prayer and Bible study session as we journey through the Bible one chapter at a time. We realize that you might have some questions or comments on the things that we discussed today. And if you do, please feel free to fill out the form below. Also, if you would like to have your own Bible, please fill out the form below and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time at our prayer and Bible study session.